Hi, I'm Unzube Ufodike and welcome to Slay Stories, our brand new show that spotlights inspiring individuals and initiatives championing diversity in their own unique way while slaying in their lane. Here we shine a light on ignored, forgotten, and in some cases erased his and her stories while making space for inclusive narratives that challenge stereotypes and increase visibility. Today's episode is on coming out stories, and our special guest here with us in our studio is Vera. Vera Nicole Jorin is originally from the Philippines, but she moved here to London 2 years ago to work as a nurse. From the start of her professional career, she's been advocating for the representation of the trans community within healthcare. Welcome.
Hi,
Vera.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming to the show.
Oh,
Amazing.
I'm very honored. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So your coming out story was something I was hoping we could talk about a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So my coming out story started when I was in college.
Yeah.
I started my hormones, taking hormones rather, and when I saw the first ever pageant in the Philippines about trans, I told myself, wait, I'm not gonna call myself as gay. I wanted to be her. When I saw the winner, I said I wanted to be her. So, starting from that moment, I've researched about the pageant, and it's called Queen of Cebu, a transgender pageant in the Philippines, and that's where my urge of like becoming a trans started.
So it started first with you. It almost sounds like you came out to yourself. So you first had that, light bulb moment where you were like, actually, I'm not gay, I'm trans. I see someone and that image is actually what I identify as.
Exactly. And when I started researching about that, and I need to take hormones, need to feminize myself. It was a bit of a challenge because my mom and my dad saw how I changed, my body changed, how I become more softer, and I just don't know how to say it to them. But in the end, I did tell my dad, like, I am a trans woman. I wanted to be me, and I wanted to live in my authentic self.
Live your authentic self. Yeah. Because the thing is, I totally get you. When it comes to coming out, sometimes we feel, those around us that are close families, we're not entirely sure if they'll still remain as close and supportive if we try to be our authentic selves. But then we debate and believe, okay, you know what? I need to live for me and be true to myself. And then, what happens next, I'll deal with it.
Exactly. I thought that I would be disowned, but luckily my dad understand, especially my mom as well. And we talked through it. And at first, it took him a year. My dad took him a year to fully understand what I was meant by saying I'm a trans woman. Yeah. But at the end, he just started treating me as a woman.
Beautiful.
And as her daughter.
Fantastic. And do you find, for you, that personal coming out story sounds beautiful and it's been a smooth journey. Within the professional workspace, have you come out and have you had a similar experience? Or?
When I started my hormones, when I applied as a nurse in this company, I thought it was a smooth sailing as well. Yeah. And then just after a while, there was a change in management. Just in the blink of an eye, I was told that I couldn't work for them anymore because to the point that if I wanted to stay, I had to cut my hair, or tell them that I'm trans or I'm a nurse. Are you okay for me to take care of you? And that it's also a kind of like discrimination.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I didn't know who to approach who to approach at that time. So that's why I started making this advocacy to fight for the transgender community in the healthcare industry.
Was that company over here in the UK?
In the Philippines. But I'm very fortunate enough that I'm in the country that accept and tolerate us.
Amazing. So that's an inspiring story. So you've come out to yourself, your family, and your colleagues, and you're also championing the case for trans visibility in the healthcare profession.
Yes, I also wanted to inspire other transgender women to to stand for their right to take up space, because for so long they are enclosing us in one box, and like we could be more than just in the entertainment industry, in the we can do more, like regardless of what we're presenting. And
Understood,
we can be in the military, we can be in the corporate world, walking scientist. We can be who we are, for as long as we tell them that this is us, we can do the job, and we can nail this.
Absolutely. And the last question before we go for a quick break. Obviously, you're a professional nurse working in the healthcare space. I also noticed this sash you're wearing, Miss Trans Global, so a beauty pageant, queen as well.
As well, yes. So I am representing UK at the Miss Trans Global pageant in August, September, and
Fantastic.
I just wanted to get this voice amplified more, and
Amazing, beautiful. Well, fingers crossed. All the best in the competition.
Thank you.
Later this year for the Miss Trans Global UK. You heard it here first. Still with us in the studio, we have Vera. Joining us in the studios is William Thompson, a British African-American finance professional currently working in private equity. His prior experience is in investment banking focused on the healthcare sector. Originally from the United States, he has lived in the UK since 2012. He is a proud dog dad of his golden retriever named Gold Ivy. Welcome, William.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be here.
A pleasure. Thank you for accepting. Working in finance, right? So one thing we're talking about when we talk about the finance sector is that there's not so much diversity, there's not so much authenticity within certain fields in finance. Investment banking is really hardcore. I'm curious, what's your coming out story? Did you come out at work, within the family, to yourself? We just heard Vera's inspiring story. I'm keen to hear what your story is.
Yeah, so like with respect to coming out, I feel like it's a constant process actually, right?
Okay.
Like, I don't feel like I came out on the 11th of May, 19, whatever.
Okay.
That it's just been an ongoing story. And so I think the process with my family was gradual. It took time. I came from a very kind of religious family, grew up in the church, and there's all the positive things about being from the church, but then also a lot of the negative things associated with coming out. And so that was a process. And then with respect to work.
Yeah, so with the family, when you say it was a process, how do you mean? So you kind of dropped hints along the way, or it was more about them kind of asking you questions over time, or?
Yeah, so it's more them asking me questions over time.
Okay.
And like, for example, my uncle, he is a gay man.
You have a gay uncle.
I have a gay
Amazing.
uncle. Yeah, but during my childhood, it was never spoken about. I suspected he was gay. He never told me. He never came out to me.
Oh, okay.
It was never made publicly aware that he was gay, and so it was one of those things where it was something that we kind of tiptoed around, that it was kind of acknowledged and understood, but not discussed. And so it wasn't really until 3 years ago where we were actually traveling together. We were in South Africa with my parents.
Yeah.
And my mom and I, we were on a park bench. I forget where exactly we were. And she said, so she had met my roommate, who was my partner.
Your amazing partner? Yes.
Yeah, he was kind of described as my partner. And she said, oh, so Matthew, like, he's quite nice. I was like, oh yeah, he is. And then she saw Matthew interact with some of my good friends, like, oh, he seems to be really close with a lot of your friends. Like, how do you know him? I was like, oh, well, so like we met a couple years ago. And she's like, so is he like your person? And I was like, yes. And
wow.
that was just kind of it. It was, we had been kind of hiding it, not discussing it, and then we kind of were able to kind of reconcile and kind of come to terms and just be open about it. And so that was eye-opening to me, in that I feel like a lot of, like, if I would have just took the initiative and kind of just said, hey mom, I'm gay. Years ago, maybe there didn't need to be that awkward dancing around, right? But yeah, that was kind of the process.
Yeah, because straight people don't say, hey mom and dad, I'm straight,
exactly.
right? Or trans, so they don't do that. So why do we have to out ourselves as gay or trans individuals? That process sometimes is a bit political.
Yeah, and especially just because you don't know how it will be received as well. And I feel like when I was younger, I was so focused on being as independent as possible, as soon as possible, because
That's
I
important,
thought that, let's say that I come out, let's say they find out that I'm gay, they could cut me off, right? Like, and so, and maybe that was an extreme, but I feel like that kind of motivated some of the things that I was doing in my professional life, ensuring that I was pushing really hard there, that I could stand on my own 2 feet if and when that were to ever happen. And so it's best, depending on kind of your background, your family situation. I do think it is a risk, and that I wouldn't push someone to do something they're not comfortable with, but at the same time, I do wish I came out a bit sooner.
Well, it's finding that balance. When younger kids come up to me and ask, okay, I'm in this situation, can I come out? I say, look, you have to be practical. So at the end of the day, if you aren't in a position where you can pay for whatever is left of your education, or you can't get your own flat, your own accommodation, you need to be prudent about what you disclose and the risk that might bring, because many a time there is still a cost in some of our communities. There's a cost to coming out. So you need to be aware and figure out if you're willing to take that leap. Do you mind me asking if you're also out at work as well, or is that something you prefer to keep more private?
As I've gotten older and more comfortable, my approach to work has changed. Like, for example, at my old firm, the way I kind of came out is there was a work wedding. Well, everyone kind of knew that I was out, but it just wasn't discussed. But there was a work wedding, which I was invited to. I was given a +1. I was dating my now partner at the time, and I said, hey, am I allowed to bring someone? I kind of told the person whose wedding it was my partner's name, just so
gender by
they could tell. Yeah, because I didn't want to make my wedding about their wedding about me. And then I just showed up to the work wedding. There's maybe 30, 40 people from work that were there, and I kind of let that do itself, right? And so that was kind of my approach to coming out at work. And then when I kind of left my old firm to my current firm, when I was going through the interview process and they'd ask questions about, why do you see yourself here long term? I said, well, my partner is European. He does X, Y, and Z. And so coming out to the interview process, and so to the extent that that's a problem, or to the extent they don't feel comfortable, then I don't need to work at this company. And so that's kind of how I approached it in the work. But it was definitely a process, and it's something that I've kind of grown into over time.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm afraid that's all we have time for in this segment, but don't go away. We're back right after this with more coming out stories here on Slay Stories. See you after the break. Welcome back to Slay Stories. I'm Unzube Ufodike, your host, and we are talking about coming out stories in partnership with Pores of Pride. Still with us in the studio are Vera and William. Joining us from Skype is Bolu Okukwe, a bodybuilder and fitness model who was unintentionally launched into the world of activism and pride mentorship after a viral coming out this year. He literally broke the internet when he came out as gay on an Instagram post that made global headlines. This is due to his dad being a former prominent Nigerian politician who was amongst the group that put in place laws that criminalize homosexuality in Nigeria. Bolu has since then gone on to try his best to provide visibility and advocacy for the LGBTQ+ individuals in Africa and all over the world with his platform. Thank you for joining us, Bolu.
It's my pleasure.
Cool. It's great to have you. It's great to finally meet the man that broke the internet with his coming out story.
Yes, indeed. It was quite crazy.
Indeed. What was it like making that statement so publicly as an individual, and obviously with a family that's quite prominent? What did that feel
You know
like?
what? Like, I'll be really honest with you. I never could have honestly imagined it would go as far as it did because, yeah, okay, it was kind of a coming out, but to be honest, people who knew me in my personal life knew that, most people knew that I was already gay.
Yeah.
So, when I posted that picture on my Instagram, it wasn't really so much of a coming out. I just wanted to, like, because I'm somebody who was quite audacious anyway, so I just wanted to post something like risque or with this kind of caption. Obviously, I never thought it would snowball as far as it did. I mean, I think the first blog was a Nigerian blog that picked up. It was Insta blog. I don't know if you know of the blog. And then after that, I think it started to make its rounds in Nigeria. And then obviously my dad made his statement or whatever he said. I think that's when it now really like became a huge firestorm because then it became like this narrative of homophobic father versus gay son, blah blah blah. So yeah, it was wild. It was crazy.
Yeah, and privately, did you have that conversation with your dad before, just to kind of manage the situation a little bit, or how did that play out?
We didn't talk for a few weeks, as you can imagine, because I think on both ends there was some kind of animosity because, I guess maybe he felt like, some kind of shame.
Took it personal. Yeah, that was
all about, like you feel like some kind of shame was brought upon his name and the family. And I'm not gonna say he's right or wrong to feel that way. I have my opinions on that. And also on my end, I just felt like, if you felt like you wanted to make any kind of statement or whatever, you wanted to say something, at least, it could have been nice to talk to me first before going to the media. So for a few weeks there was this kind of animosity, but eventually we did have a phone conversation, and it ended quite well actually. I think we ended the call with him telling me, God bless you, and I hope like whatever you find, whatever you're looking for in life, and God will take you to where you need to go. Which I think for Nigerian parents that you just told you're gay, I think that's pretty much as good as you're gonna get. So I mean, at this point now, all in all, our relationship is on good terms. So.
That's a blessing. I mean, my parents are nowhere near as famous. My dad is in Nigeria and a Nigerian. And I remember coming out to him, and still till today, when I was actually getting involved in Slave Stories, I had to call him and say, look, I'm doing this thing, you might see a little bit more of me, so just, because you have to manage them, right? They still
you do.
have their own views on what's the family name and so on and so forth.
Because at the end of the day, they are your parents, so, you can't get another set. So, even though, they may not be as agreeing of your lifestyle, like you said, you just have to manage it as best as you can, which is what I try to do. And I think so far it's working out decently.
Indeed, fantastic. So earlier we had Vera and William talk about the process sort of coming out within themselves and then also coming out to family and coming out in the workplace. So I don't know, as a bodybuilder / trainer, do you have to stay in the closet, or are you out within the bodybuilding world? I imagine there's a lot of testosterone. What is it like?
Yes. Okay. So for me, I've always been out. That's what I mean. That's what I meant when I say it wasn't really a coming out because I've not lived in Nigeria for a while, and most of my life living in England and now in France, I've always been out. I think that was just the first time I stated on a public platform like Instagram that I'm gay, which is obviously why the blogs picked it up. But in the sort of like in the fitness and sports world, it is very, very toxic. It's very homophobic, as you can imagine. But there's something that you call I think you call it desirability privilege. I mean, and I think I can honestly admit that this is something that affects gay men negatively, but this is also something that I benefited from. I think because, and let me just make this very clear, all types of gay men are fine and should be respected. But I think because I fit a certain kind of type, or I fall on a spectrum of gay men who are more, maybe you could say, masculine presenting, I've actually in life not faced that much homophobia. Even in the spaces when it comes to bodybuilding and fitness, I also am quite tolerated and accepted. I think just because I fit this type where like people, gay men like me are tolerated. I think another gay man who is maybe more effeminate or feminine presenting would face a lot more resistance than I would get. And even though I've benefited from this, I will still call it out and be like, it doesn't make sense. It's tragic, because even I've been impressed with people who know I'm gay. There may be other maybe feminine gay men in those spaces. Now they would say homophobic things to me about them, and I'm like, you know what? Just because maybe they're a bit more feminine than me, maybe they wear a certain thing. So it's very difficult. But I would say this kind of toxicity and homophobia mainly affects more effeminate gay men much more, which is obviously an issue and it's a problem. And which is one of the things I try to use my platform to speak on and talk about, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I imagine as well for you, just bring you into this conversation, where you've said coming out has been a process, and it's still a process. Do you find that sometimes you encounter people that might make comments that are homophobic, or in your case, very transphobic, because they don't know about yourselves, and then you have to manage that situation and then maybe perhaps out yourself or not out yourself in that particular situation?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, there's times where people, I was out to lunch with an old friend who maybe he knows I'm gay, maybe he doesn't. I remember where the waitress comes to the table, is like, yeah, she's smoking, right? And I was like, oh, I guess. Like, I can appreciate an attractive woman, but I was like, A, that's inappropriate just given, it was a very sexist comment, but it was like, do you not know me? Like, so all the time you just kind of have to check people.
Yeah.
I actually have experience at work. It happened like February when a patient approached me and asked, "Are you transvestite?" I said, "Huh? No, I'm a woman." I said, "I'm a woman." I said, "Oh, I don't want to get in, I don't want you to touch me or something like that." And then I just told her, wow. Wait, what you see, how you see me is who I am. And for as long I'm not doing any harms on you, I'm taking care of you. And you have to, just trust me because I'm also taking care of you. And then she said, "Oh, wow." I guess from that time that I said that, she just like really slowed and just, became more approachable, and she tries to converse with me and get to know me. Because when people, because they just have this kind of like thinking that gays, trans are, like they could do harm to us, but for as long as you tell them and you show them, then they would have this perception that we are good.
And to each of you, all three of you, if you could look back sort of 10 years ago at yourselves, what sort of advice would you give your younger version of yourself? I know Montero recently broke the internet with another song coming out to his 14-year-old self with Call Me By Your Name, but what would you say to your younger version of yourself with all the experience and the benefit of hindsight that you have now? Perhaps we could start with you, Bolu, and then Vera, and then...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
If I could give my younger self advice, I would just tell him to... First of all, I'll give him a hug because I think that little boy went through so much difficulty mentally. But I think I'll just tell him to, stay strong, make sure you stay true to your authentic self and be yourself, because the world is a horrible place. People are always going to try to bring you down, maybe for doing things that, they wish they could do, or just for being your authentic self. So just stay strong, stay true to who you are. I'll tell him to make sure he knows that who he is or what he is, the way he was born, is not something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud about. And, he should just live his life for himself and not for anybody else. And, opinions don't pay your bills. So that's what I would say to him.
Beautiful. Thank you. And the same question to you, please, Vera.
I guess I would just say that enjoy the process and be your authentic self. And everything will go smoothly.
Yes, everything will go smoothly. Trust in the process.
Trust in the process. Yeah.
Thank you. Last but not least.
Please. Yeah, I probably would just say no amount of career success or friendships can be worth more than being able to live your authentic self. That is more valuable than all those things. And if you potentially are putting those things at risk, like you'll be happier just being able to be yourself. Broken on the street corner.
Wow. There's a lot of wisdom. I'm afraid that's all we have time for on this episode of Slay Stories. Before we go, I'd like to thank our guests, Vera, William, and Bolu, for joining us on Coming Out Stories in partnership with Pause of Pride. I'm Uzubu Fodike, your host on Slay Stories. See you next time.